This is by far the best robot mower I ever tried, and it's 1/4 the price of the one getting all the hype, the Mammotion Luba 2, which I made a video about a few months ago, and I swear everyone since then has been making a video. Some people only talked about the positives, but I had some issues with it. The hardware was awesome, but it was buggy, the mower got stuck and lost all the time, it died in my lawn, it was heavy to bring back to the base, and ultimately, its lack of spatial awareness got it run over by a truck. RIP, little buddy. So I didn't want to spend another $4,000 on a new one, but I didn't want to mow my lawn either. So I took the chance on this cheaper mower, the Navimo i110. It isn't even their flagship mower, but it's their newest one, and honestly, it's actually better than just about any robot mower I've ever seen. And I've had this thing running nonstop, mowing every day for the past 2 months, and I haven't had to touch it except one time that I'll explain a little bit later. Now, that sounds like a bold claim, right? Saying this is the best robot mower, it's 1/4 the price, it's more of a budget model anyway. You might be guessing this video is sponsored. It is not sponsored. This is not a sponsored video. Navimo is not seeing this, they're not paying me for this. This is a completely organic video. So I'm gonna talk about both pros and cons in this video, but honestly, the TLDR on this is 2 thumbs up. It's smarter, cheaper, lighter, and does a better job cutting than the previous mower I had. So there's a lot to like about this. So let's kind of rewind a little bit and start with the setup. This is made by Navimo, which is a company owned by Segway, so it's no surprise that it's a very seamless process. I know in the older version, like last year, their old flagship, some people said it was a little buggy. I saw absolutely no bugs at all. It was incredibly easy to set up. You can make multiple zones as well. And the way it works is you have the mower, you have the little garage, your home base where it goes back to charge, and then you have your little RTK station, which you have a really long cable, and I just mounted this up on my roof, and it has a clear view of the sky. It works really well from there. So you can map out many different zones, and you have 3 different ways to map the zones. You can have areas that it's supposed to cut, islands that it's supposed to keep out of, and connectors between different little segments that you might have it cut. Essentially, all you do is drive it around with your phone like a little RC car, map the edge of this. There's 2 kinds of edges as well. There's the stay right inside the edge and the mow on the edge. So if you have like a paved driveway like I do, you might want to just go on the edge. There's no sense in having a 6-inch buffer there. It can drive on the edge as long as it's level, and it does a good job with that. In addition, if you make any mistakes, I thought the erase feature was really well thought out. It retraces the path, it goes in reverse until the point where you say, all right, it's good now, and I'm gonna redraw from here on forward, and like you don't have to try to make it match again, like it just knows where it is. There's also, this is really cool, I didn't use this, but there's an auto mapping feature if you want it. It looks really promising. Like I said, I didn't use it, but you can just let this thing go and it can see the grass, it can mow the grass, and it can figure out where the edges of your lawn actually are. All right, so that's set up, but I actually have it right here. You might be wondering now, okay, like you understand setup is easy, but like there's still so many questions about how this works. How does it know where it is? How does it cut? Does it do a good job? What happens if there's an object? What happens if you have a dog that leaves a mess in your lawn? There's a lot of questions to have about this. So let's kind of peel those back one thing at a time. Starting off with, how does this mower actually know where it is? Well, you have the RTK station, which uses satellites and kind of tells the robot where it is in your lawn. That works very well, but it also has vision, which I know a lot of others say they have, but this one legitimately has good vision. So on the front, you can see the little camera sticking up right there, and the camera does a fantastic job. Like if I step in front of this, it'll detect that I'm there, it'll go around me. It can detect other objects in your lawn as well. So if you have kids' toys or literally anything just sitting around, it'll see it, it won't run it over, it'll drive around it and continue on with its mowing path. On the bottom then, you can see the way it actually cuts. It has one little wheel here with just razor blades on the outside. They're very cheap and very easy to replace. They just have little Phillips head screws holding them in. I haven't had to replace them yet. They're about 2 months old now. Realistically, you should be changing them every month, but like I said, I haven't had to yet. In addition, they kind of fling, they're kind of loose, so they fling in if they hit like a stick or something. That way you're not damaging your blades, and they should be lasting significantly longer. You'll notice that the mowing deck is able to move up and down. Unlike some other mowers which do that automatically, I'm totally happy with cutting costs on this. I don't need to do that in the app. You just have a dial on the top. It's more bulletproof. Like you can just rotate the dial to exactly the height you want. And yeah, it's gonna mow at that height. until you turn this dial again. This one actually goes from 2 inches all the way up to 3.6 inches. I have a taller grass. I kind of like mowing around 2.5 to 3 inches, and this is perfect for that. You'll also see we have an indicator light ring all the way around this, and that'll basically tell you, is it mowing? Is it like, does it have a problem? Is the battery dead? Is it charging? Any kind of communication that it's going to have with you, for the most part, is going to be on that ring right there. But besides that, there is also a small LCD display here that'll tell you basically, is it expecting rain and going back to the home base? That'll basically tell you some fundamental information, battery level, what it's doing right now, its prediction for the weather, and stuff like that. Now, that sounds funny, prediction for the weather, but if you're like me, the first thing I noticed when I saw this, I actually saw this back at CES first, was that it doesn't have a rain sensor on there. Most other mowers have 2 little nodes that if water touches them, they complete the circuit and it knows it's raining. This thing doesn't have that, and it actually uses a forecast to figure out when it's raining, when it's going to rain, and when this thing should not be out mowing. I was very skeptical of this. I thought it was going to really not do a good job at all with that, but it does a fantastic job. It works even better than rain sensors out there, and somehow this thing, like, it's like your relative that just like their bone hurts and they know it's gonna rain. That's this thing. This thing knows so well when it's gonna rain. I see it go back to the base. I know I gotta go inside because it's gonna rain soon. All right, next up, how does it actually drive around? I think it's pretty obvious. You can tell the wheels on the front are very knobby, and that's going to be how it drives. It pulls itself, it doesn't push itself, so unlike a lot of other mowers that push, and it has 2 little casters on the back that kind of swing around. That way it's not harsh on your lawn. It never tears anything up. It could do a 0 turn at any point in your lawn. And it does a pretty decent job of climbing hills. That was my biggest concern with this. I don't have any particularly large hills in my lawn, but I have some slopes here and there. This thing has no problem with that. If you have big hills in your lawn, like obviously this is not going to be the one for you. There are 4-wheel drive mowers out there that will do a better job, but I think most people have a relatively flat-ish lawn, and for that, this thing does an absolutely great job. All right, next question. What about the battery life? Does this thing like mow and then have to recharge for a long time? Well, honestly, I don't really worry about the battery life because this thing mows nonstop on a cycle. So you choose the hours during which it is going to mow. So for me, I say 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. in the summer. I think that's a good amount of time to mow. Because you're only cutting a tiny amount off the top, you don't really have to worry about wet grass quite as much. If you're mowing once every 3 or 4 days, maybe wait till the lawn dries out, but I have it going every day. And if it only mows 95% of the lawn in the day, it'll do the remaining 5% the following morning and then restart the entire lawn. So it doesn't really matter to me if it's able to do the whole lawn in one stretch. This is rated for up to about 10,000 square feet of mowing. It's actually limited in the app as well. If you try to map more than that, it won't let you do that. Fortunately, my lawn is just barely under 10,000 square feet, so it does the whole thing. It does it well. I don't even know. Like, I think it can do pretty much the whole thing in a day, but it'll mow for probably about 2 or 3 hours and then go back and charge for maybe 1 hour or something like that, and then go back out and charge again. I can generally finish my lawn in about 2 recharges, maybe 3 recharges, but for the most part, it's kind of even faster than the Mammotion Luba 2 was, despite that theoretically having a better battery rating, mostly because it just never gets stuck and it mows fairly quickly and pretty efficiently. You can see on the top it also has 4 buttons. The big one is the red stop button, so if anybody is getting hurt by this for some reason, like I said, it has really good obstacle avoidance, but just for a safety feature, it's good to have a big red mushroom button. You just kind of slam that, it'll stop exactly where it is. It also has a speaker on it that can talk to you. It'll let you know when it's connected or mowing and stuff like that. Just like some voice talk. Sometimes it catches me by surprise, but that's what it does. Now, the experience with this, how well did it actually do mowing my lawn? Did I have to fix this a lot? Did I have to move it around? Did anything go wrong? Well, like I said, there was one time that it did get stuck. Actually, it got stuck in one spot maybe 2 times until I fixed the problem. In essence, because it doesn't have 4-wheel drive, there's one little crater, a little hole. I don't know if maybe a dog or something dug it a couple years ago and grass grew in there. He couldn't even really see the hole, but he got stuck in that little divot about twice, and then I had to kind of fill that in a little bit, and it hasn't gotten stuck since. Otherwise, the only kind of hands-on thing I have to do is to trim with a weed whacker, maybe 15 minutes every 1, maybe 2 weeks, but usually about once a week I'll go out and do that. It's a lot better than mowing my entire lawn, and my lawn just looks perfect every day. You don't have those days where, all right, I gotta mow the lawn, it's clearly starting to look bad. It just always looks like it was mowed yesterday. It also alternates the pattern every single day automatically. So in the app, there is no way to set the patterns. It'll just rotate about 45 degrees all the way around every single day so that you always have, like, it's healthier for the grass. You don't have tread marks in there. It's not wearing down the grass at all. And you might be wondering, what does it do with the grass that it cuts? Well, it actually micro mulches because you're only cutting off about 1/4 inch of grass per day, maybe even less than that, depending on how fast your grass grows. It just kind of drops that. You're never going to see that. It's healthier for the grass as well. So you never have scalped lawns. There's no stress for the grass. Like, longer grass, you're supposed to cut no more than 1/3 of the grass off. But if you're doing that, that is stressing the plant out. So you're not going to have quite as thick of a lawn as you would if you do this little micro cutting every single day. You also have fewer bugs because the grass never gets really long. You don't have a lot of mosquitoes in there. You can also adjust it. So if you want short grass, it just keeps it short every single day, and it's never going to be too tall, and you're not going to have dead grass blades that you might be getting after a recent cut with a more traditional lawnmower. In addition, if you mow or your spouse mows or you hire a mowing company or something and they're doing that during the day, like a gas-powered mower, it's loud, it can be distracting, it's kind of be annoying to neighbors and to yourself, and this thing is absolutely silent. Like, you can just hear the grass blades getting cut, and maybe, like, you can't even really hear the motors on this. It's very, very quiet when it's driving around. Let me show you an example of that right now. I think maybe a drawback for this is that there are no lines on the lawn. Some people like to have nice straight lines. We saw that with the Mammotion. This one doesn't do that. It kind of looks like, when you go to the barber and like a week later, your hair just looks good, but it doesn't look like a really fresh cut. You just know it's good. You don't even think about it. That's basically what this does with your lawn. It's just always good. It's always a perfect level cut, but you don't see the sharp lines in there. For some people, that might not be appealing to you. For me, I kind of like not having the lines. It just nice. It just looks good all the time. Now, taking a look at the app, it's a very simple app. You see a map of where it mowed, where it's mowing right now, and it kind of has a light gray, dark gray. So the darker gray is where it mowed already today. The light gray is the spot that it didn't. You might see a couple things that it missed here and there. It does know where it missed. It'll go back and get those later. And of course, because it alternates cuts every single day, it's going to not miss anything in the long run. If we tap on the menu on the top left, you can see some basic mower settings like the schedule. The schedule works a little bit differently. You don't say start at this time and just mow until you're done. Instead, you give it a window during which it is allowed to cut. So I could say, like I mentioned earlier in the video, mow between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. and it can do that. And you can also say during that time, mow all the zones. Maybe if there's you let your dogs out in the morning, you could say mow this other area in the morning, mow that area in the afternoon. And so your different zones can have different times as well. And down here, mowing cycle, like I mentioned before, you can have it mow continuously, or you can have it stop once it reaches 100%. There are also anti-theft features on here. I didn't realize I had that off. But if you install the Access Plus, so I believe that it uses LTE, I do have that. I never installed it. But installing that can help you prevent people from stealing this. That way, if anyone takes it, you can track it down and you can find it and get it back. There are also other safeties as well, like it's paired with your phone. And if anyone else steals it, I guess they would just be using it for parts, take the motor out of it, maybe get the razor blades. I don't really know what they would really do with it. It's really only worth it when it's paired with your app. We also have some other options down here. You can relocate the charging station. You can check out weather adaptive, and you could say, hey, like sensitivity, if there's light rain, or drizzle or moderate rain, like when is it going to stop and when's it going to go back to the base? If it drizzles a lot and you find that this thing doesn't cut for a bunch of days in a row, you could maybe change that sensitivity so that you don't end up having to go out with this thing and like really cut your grass a lot. Unfortunately, there is no manual mowing mode. That's something that I saw on the Luba 2 that I wish this did have, just because there's like one little patch that I don't have this mowing. It's too close to kind of a road in a dangerous spot. I would like to just kind of navigate this over there and mow real quick once every couple days, but instead I'll just take my weed whacker and I'll do that myself. Going back in the app, you can send it home. You can say mow. You can tap on the little map icon right there, and that'll allow you to customize different zones. So if we tap on add more, there are 4 different options. Like I said, really 3 that you're going to be using. The boundary, everywhere that you're mowing inside. The off-limit islands. So if you have like a landscaping, some type of tree or something that maybe a swing set, something you don't want it to go up against and maybe cut your flowers or something, and a channel which is going to connect multiple different boundaries, multiple different mowing zones that you might have. And then you have the vision fence off zone. So if the vision sense is kind of always rejecting one area, not mowing, and you just really want it to go in there and mow, maybe it's like underneath something that it is able to get under, then you could turn that off in that little region and have it just mow and just kind of blindly mow based on the RTK and kind of estimating where it actually is there. Kind of highlighting the pros of this. It actually does use the camera. I don't really know if the Mammotion ever did. Like I said, it ended up getting hit by a truck, very unfortunate. But this thing is incredibly good at avoiding obstacles and edges and knowing exactly where it is and never running over my flowers, never getting stuck. Also, the price is a huge positive with this. This thing is $999, is the cheapest version. It goes up a little bit depending on if you have a longer range one. So this one I think is maybe $100 or $200 more expensive than that, but still compared to the Luba 2, which is about $3,000 to $4,000, that's a pretty big difference. Also compared to traditional lawnmowers, like the best-selling mower at Lowe's, I just checked it out, it's $400 plus another 1 to 2 hours of time per week for you for a 9 or 10,000 square foot lawn. So when you factor that in, it becomes a lot more appealing. Now, I don't know how long this is going to last. I really hope it lasts a really long time, but even looking at like mowing service, if you hire somebody to mow a 10,000 square foot lawn, it's probably $50 per mow, something like that, maybe a little bit more, and it's gonna cost you probably about $1,000 for 1 year of mowing service, and this is like $1,000. So as long as you can go out with the weed whacker once a week for 10 or 15 minutes, this is going to be a better deal than a mowing service. And it just looks good all the time. You don't have to wait for the mowing service. You don't have that loud noise. It's kind of nice. Also, like I said, it automatically adjusts the cutting path based on, the day. So perpendicular, diagonal, that always works really well. And it has a narrower cutting deck. So this sounds like a drawback, and I really thought it was until I noticed that you don't have nearly the unevenness that we saw with the Mammotion Luba 2, which has 2 cutting decks. So anytime one of the wheels went into a divot there, it kind of made it a little uneven, and you could see the topography of your lawn a little bit more. With this one, I feel like you really don't see that quite as much. The narrower mowing deck kind of doesn't really ever go up or down too much, just having a shorter lever arm from the fulcrum in the middle. But not everything is perfect with this. I know I mentioned a couple drawbacks throughout the video, but some other ones that I noticed, for one, you cannot use the mower camera remotely. Like you can't look at it like we were able to with the Luba 2, which I thought was a really cool feature. Maybe as a security camera, if you're away from home, you could have it drive around and just check out, like did the deer eat your flowers or did anyone smash your window? Like you can drive it around and see that. You cannot do that with this mower right here. Also, you cannot manually change the path. And really, it doesn't matter because you can't see lines, like mowing lines anyway. There are some subtle lines when it cuts, but the tires are so narrow, it's really not like it's nothing like a zero turn, and it's also nothing like the Luba 2, which has more distinct mowing lines when it's done cut. Also, the scheduling, I think, is a little bit odd. You can choose time windows, but it just seems to always kind of loop through and cycle and mow your entire lawn, which works well, but it's a little bit of a learning curve when you're first setting it up. And lastly, even though this works very, very well on my property here, I don't have particularly steep hills. I have one little corner with some pine needles that it can sometimes slip on, or it did when I was setting it up, and it can sometimes get stuck in some small ditches. So if you don't have a relatively flat lawn with, I think probably 15 degrees is the steepest slope that I would say this is comfortable driving up. If you have anything steeper than that, this thing might not be able to handle that. I really wish it had 4-wheel drive, but the smarts inside this mower, I think if it is able to drive around your property and not get stuck, I think this is the best mower on the market, and obviously a very competitive price. Oh, and one other drawback, if you have a dog and you're not really on top of cleaning up after your dog, I don't have a dog, so I didn't do a direct test, but I put a tomato in my lawn. I kind of figured it's similar enough. And, well, it's set to mow at 3.5 inches, so it just made sure the tomato was 3.5 inches or less. Like, it ran over it and it kind of cut it down. And so I would estimate if you have a dog and you don't clean up, it's probably gonna be a little messy. But like I said, that's just my take on it. I've only had it for 2 months. Who knows, maybe in a couple years it won't last as long. Maybe there's more maintenance than I expect, but at least for now, my impression of this is very, very positive, and I would highly recommend it. It's kind of rare that I see tech that I highly recommend like this and have very few kind of complaints about, but Fortunately, this is one of them, and I think the price is a big contributor there. But let me know what you think about this, as well as robot mowers in general. Is it something that you would ever consider buying? If you enjoyed the video, consider liking and subscribing. I'm Mike O'Brien. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.